Good afternoon, everyone. To our panelists, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, our CEO of the agency, Mr. Thomas Anthony, Ms. Nisha McIntyre, committee members, IMA Grenada staff, members of the audience, good afternoon. My name is Rhea Burke. I am the Marketing and Communications Officer at the agency, and I will be the moderator for this afternoon. Now, at the agency, in everything we do, we always begin with a prayer. So I'd like to call on Ms. Carleen Purcell, the TCO at the agency, to lead us in a prayer. Yes, thank you. Stand, please.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for traveling mercies as you got us here safely today to this venue, giving us the opportunity to connect, share knowledge, and explore the transformative potential of the investment migration industry. May our discussions be guided by wisdom and insight. May we approach each conversation with openness and respect, recognizing the diverse perspectives in this room. Father, we ask for clarity in our responses and creativity in our suggestions so that we may foster opportunities that benefit individuals, communities, and Grenada as a whole. Let us be inspired by the possibilities that lie ahead and work collaboratively towards a brighter future for all. In Jesus' precious name I pray, amen.
Amen. You can have your seat. Good afternoon again. Today we gather not just as individuals, but as a community with a shared interest in the future of Grenada. The Citizenship by Investment program has sparked conversations across our island, as we know. And so IMA Grenada is on a mission to ensure that these conversations are informed, transparent, and beneficial for all Grenadians. At the heart of today's symposium is our commitment to educate and empower you, the Grenadian public. The CBI program is not merely a means of investment. It is a vital tool that has and continues to help drive economic growth, enhance public services, and ultimately improve the quality of life for us all. Through the funds generated by this program, we've been able to invest in our infrastructure, education, healthcare, and so much more. We are so grateful to see all of your faces here this afternoon, and those of you joining online. We know you have so many options with what to do with your afternoons, and so we're grateful for joining us here this afternoon. To start off this afternoon's session will be our CEO, Mr. Thomas Anthony. Mr. Thomas Anthony is a former commercial, retail, and investment banker with 26 years of experience working in banking and financial securities sectors in Antigua, St. Lucia, and Miami. Thomas served in various roles to include financial advisor to wealth manager. Before joining the Investor Migration Agency Grenada, Thomas was the Project Development Officer, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, and Chief Executive Officer, acting, that is, of the Antigua Citizenship by Investment Unit from 2013 to 2017. Thomas was Global Head, ICV, at Exeger, a global governance, risk, and compliance firm until 2018. He has published multiple articles which cover a range of topics in the investment migration space and is a prominent speaker in this area. He is also a certified financial crime specialist, an accredited director, a member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, and fellow of the Investment Migration Council. Mr. Anthony previously served as the CEO of our program from 2018 to 2019 and is now currently our CEO once again. We'd like to welcome Mr. Anthony to the podium.
I didn't get the clicker. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Rhea, for that introduction. Special thank you for those of you who journeyed to be here with us in person. And for those joining us online and on GIS and other media sources, thank you very much. Whereas the last 3 iterations of the symposium, we spent a considerable amount of time to walk you through the process that an applicant goes through when we determine whether or not that individual should be recommended for citizenship. And in those iterations of the symposium, we went through the various roles of the stakeholders, such as the local agent, the marketing agent, the bank, in terms of their KYC program. And we also went through the process from the agency's perspective once an application comes to us, which involves the Financial Intelligence Unit in Grenada, which is the point of contact for the Joint Regional Communications Center, which is headquartered in Barbados, which is a sub-agency for CARICOM Impacts. And CARICOM Impacts broadly has responsibility for national security across the Caribbean, not just countries with CBI programs. And they vet all of the applicants on our behalf. And we also spoke about the role of the international due diligence providers who conduct research, investigations on each of the applicants that come to the program. So having done that in the past, I'm not going to bore you with that kind of information, unless, of course, during the panel discussion, you ask a particular question. So what I thought that I'd do today is to focus on the economic impact or the financial impact of the program on the economy of Grenada, and going back to 2019. So you will see here on the slide the revenue contribution of the program broken down into 3 areas. The fees that applicants pay, an administrative fee, the National Transformation Fund, which is the contribution that is made by applicants in order for them to be considered to be citizens. And the projects item is merely the contribution that applicants pay once they choose a real estate option, or a Section 10, as we refer to it, Section 11. So I'm not sure if those of you in the back can see the slide, but essentially we can see that the total revenue contribution of the program grew from $119 million, and this is EC dollars, in 2019 to 456 million approximately in 2023. And that figure represented about 30% of total government revenue that year. So far this year, well, up to June this year, we were at $247 million in total contribution to the economy. And I can say here that as at the end of the 3rd quarter, September this year, we were past $400 million EC in terms of our contribution to government revenue. So to say it's a significant contributor to the economy is an understatement. If we look in the upper right-hand corner of the slide, we see fees again, National Transformation Fund, and projects. And that's a representation of the total over the period we're reporting. So $292 million in terms of fees, $660 million in terms of the National Transformation Fund, and $373 million in terms of the projects. And that, I believe, totals about $1.3 billion over the 5.5 years that we're reporting. So again, a significant contributor to the program. And for 2024 thus far, our contribution to total government revenue is 37%, which is represented on the lower left-hand corner of the slide. Now here I just want to talk a little bit about the broader contribution rather than just direct investment. And if I go back here for a minute, these numbers do not include the investment to projects. That's a separate number. So the projects like Six Senses, Intercontinental, the Beach House by Silver Sands, those are contributions in addition to these numbers. This is just direct revenue to government. And here we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the broader impact, and here more specifically about employment. So the Grenada Cooperative Bank, they have a dedicated team looking at CBI applicants. And so the employment of those individuals in that team is solely dedicated to the CBI component of Grenada Cooperative Bank's structure. In the IMA Grenada agency, we employ 30 individuals. So that's, again, direct employment as a result of having a program. And then we have stakeholders, local agents. There are 20 or so of them, 21 I believe, and they employ individuals to help them to process these applications. Again, that's direct employment as a result of having the program. Then there are 3 marketing agents, Nisha being one, who are locals. And they also employ individuals. So again, direct employment. But going broader than that, we have the projects, right? So in the case of Six Senses, there are more than 200 people employed in the operational phase of Six Senses. Now it has been opened. During construction, there were more than 150 people employed. At Intercontinental, there are, I'm told, 150 individuals employed in the construction phase. And there will be employment again in the operational phase of the project. Beach houses, similarly, there was employment during the construction of the hotel plant, and there is now employment in the operational phase of the project. And we can talk more specifically, if you wish, once we go to the Q&A session. But really just broadly to give you an idea of the contribution of the program to the economy. This here is a list of some of the completed projects. And the point at Petit Calavini, solely from CBI investments. So too was the Hideaway Apartments. Beach House by Silver Sands, fully funded by CBI investment. Six Senses, as we know, recently opened, fully funded by CBI investment. And there's St. David's Agro, which is also a smaller, locally owned project in the St. David's area. On stream is the Intercontinental Hotel, which is under construction, the Grenada National Resort, which is in the north of the island, the Hartman Project, and recently back in the CBI space is the Kowana Bay property. So if you recall, that was lingering for some period of time. Government made the decision to reacquire the property, and now that property has been leased to the Silver Sands Group, and that project is going to be funded on the CBI, and I believe the target opening is 2027. Don't quote me on that. And here, we wanted to talk about the contribution, the room count contribution under the program. So currently, we're told that 8% of the rooms currently available in Grenada, which the total room count is 2676, 8% of those were funded on the CBI. But the projected, including Heng Cheng, Intercontinental, Kawana Bay, and others, is forecast to become 44% of the room count under the CBI. Now, my own view of this is because this is growing in a significant way because conventional financing for hotel properties has dried up in the region. That has been the case for more than 2 decades. And so the only way we're getting major hotel plants is through CBI, the CBI program. And we see that represented by the growth in the room count from 8% currently to 44% by 2030. These are just some of the projects that we provide sponsorship for. There are 14 projects in total, and we've just named some here. And I think you'll see the common thread here is the youth development and education. So we have the Rainbow City All-Star Cultural Development, Intercol Games, that I understand is a big deal for Grenada. I'm getting to understand that. But I'm not coming from a culture where sports and school sports in particular is such a big item. But I'm developing an appreciation for it, having been here going on my 2nd year. The Carifta Games, again, junior achievement. The Pan Association, so we allocated funds for 4 of the unsponsored bands to ensure that they were able to enter the competition by allowing them to purchase instruments and provide training to their members. The Chess Federation, they just returned. They represented Grenada well. We contributed to their cost to get them to the Chess Olympiad. And as I said, they represented Grenada well. And I'm not sure I'm saying this correctly, but IMA Grenada also is a contributor to SPIO. A DCEO, did I get that right? Yes. A title sponsor for SPIO. And so again, the theme is youth development, education, and development, including cultural development. And these, I must say, are part of the agency's budget. It is not coming from central government. It's not coming from the National Transformation Fund investment from applicants. It is part of the IMA's annual budget, so operational budget we allocate to make these contributions. And I see that that's all Madam Master of Ceremony has for me. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking to you. I prefer that we spend the time having dialogue. And so I thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to the Q&A section of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for going straight deep dive into the benefits of the CBI program. I'm sure some of us here didn't know about some of these benefits. And as I say, if you didn't know, now you know. So moving on now to Ms. Nisha McIntyre, marketing agent. Nisha's company is the My Grenada Solutions. You would notice that Mrs. Afi Ventuve de Vega was publicized to be here. However, unfortunately, she cannot be here with us this afternoon. Nisha has graciously agreed to be with us. Thank you so much, Nisha. Nisha McIntyre is a certified innovation specialist and marketing communications strategist with a penchant for human-centric design and methodologies. Jesus, methodologies. My bad. Oh, God. Her experience as a marketer has been impactful in the academia, destination tourism, and investment migration industries. Her case study on solutionism at Fortune 500 companies was a mainstay of the solutions marketing MBA syllabus at Holt International Business School, while her role as the local consultant for ICN Artea in the diagnostic assessment of Grenada's tourism industry facilitated the 2022 development of the National Sustainable Tourism Development Plan for Grenada. Since 2016, she has focused on the strategic development of Grenada's citizenship by investment programs, firstly in Dominica and now in Grenada, where she serves as the managing director of My Grenada Solutions, Inc., a licensed marketing agent for Grenada's citizenship by investment program. Prior to her entry into the investment migration industry, she served as the head of the marketing for the Americas at the Grenada Tourism Authority, overseeing successful marketing campaigns for Grenada's largest source markets, as well as the introduction of JetBlue's non-stop service to Grenada. Thank you, Nisha. A proud Grenadian, she currently sits at the head of marketing on the board of Reach Within, a non-profit organization committed to helping children and youth in Grenada's care homes overcome childhood trauma and transition into healthy adults. We welcome Ms. Nisha McIntyre.
I have to adjust up. Sorry. I'm a little taller than Ria, as you can see. A pleasant good evening to everyone. As Ria said, I am obviously not Afi Ventu, so I apologize for the disappointment for those of you who looked forward to seeing Afi, but I'm filling in her shoes. Today, I'm not going to try to regurgitate much of what has been said over this PR campaign that the IMA has launched to educate Grenadians about the Citizenship by Investment program, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the business of investment migration, which is a greater industry, and its impacts. Thomas spoke a lot about the impacts, but I'm going to just target in on a few of them. So, as you would have seen publicized, Afi Ventu is the MD of Global Services, Inc., a licensed local agent. I am the MD of My Grenada Solutions, a licensed international marketing agent. And oftentimes we get the question, what's the difference, right? What's a local agent? What's a marketing agent? Do they differ? Do they work together? How do they manage within this greater spectrum? So I want to start off, first of all, by just explaining who we are and what we do. So the first thing to understand is that within the construct of this program, the left hand cannot exist without the right hand. A licensed marketing agent requires the business of a licensed local agent, and a licensed local agent requires the business of a licensed marketing agent. The two must be present for an application to be accepted by the IMA. So who we are. I'm going to start with the international marketing agents because although I'm a local, that's who I am, and that's what my business does. The Investment Migration Agency licenses entities, companies around the world to basically bring awareness of Grenada's program to the greater marketplace, to attract investors for its programs and ultimately help these investors prepare their applications for the program. That's in a nutshell what we do. We help create a face and have been creating a face for this program internationally for a long time. The IMA is now actively doing that with us in that initiative. The local agents, licensed local agents, they manage the client's efforts on the ground in Grenada. When we have completed our preparatory work of an application, we pass it on to the local agents who then themselves review the applications to ensure that they meet the correct formatting, they meet the regulations and policies of the program. The local agent is the entity that interacts with the escrow bank and manages the financial process of the applications, because in Grenada, our first point of contact within the program is to submit the documents to the escrow bank, Grenada Cooperative Bank. And they assess our applicants to indicate whether or not they feel comfortable accepting their funds. And it's only when the bank's due diligence process has been tried and tested and they come back with a decision, will they then decide whether they'll accept the funds, and the client knows whether he or she can continue along the process and submit an application. So the local agent manages that process, and once the approval and go ahead is given to them, they then submit the applications to the IMA on behalf of the clients and the marketing agent, and they then become the direct form of contact with the IMA for the application. So application acceptance letters, approval letters, any sort of communication that the IMA has or request that they may have for an application, they will communicate directly with a local agent who in turn will feed that communication back to me. I return, feed that communication back to my client, right? And so that is how we work together. So we source, we build the greater picture, we prepare the applications, they finalize, they submit. So 1 and 2 must exist together, particularly in Grenada for the application to be accepted. And in terms of who can become a marketing agent, I just want to touch on that a little bit, and also the local agents. You don't have to be a lawyer to be a licensed local agent. I want to say that because that question comes up a bit. It's good to have knowledge, as long as you have a solid, good framework of how business is done, and you can provide evidence of your ability to do just by the cause. I think the IMA is open to granting licenses. And there are quite a few local licensed agents who are not lawyers who do considerably well within this industry. So just for those who may be considering the possibility of doing it, right? I talk a lot about licensing. You'll hear me stress licensed international marketing agent, licensed local agent, and that's not by chance, all right? Within the greater investment migration industry, you have quite a few companies and individuals who promote different countries, different programs, different residence by investment programs, different citizenship by investment programs. And many times, individuals who promote programs may not necessarily be licensed. However, for them to work and get their clients' applications submitted to a program, they will have to work through a licensed entity. The programs will only work with licensed entities. And I put on reference here what a typical licensed certificate looks like. Right now, we have about 52 licensed marketing agents for Grenada's program that are distributed around the world. By no means does that represent the total gamut of companies that are promoting Grenada's product internationally. It does lend some interesting debate as to how the narrative is controlled. So international agents like myself, the onus is on us to ensure that the relationships we build with what we call sub-agents within the industry upholds the integrity of what the IMA has charged us to do. And the IMA does manage and give oversight over the roles that we have in the international marketplace. So for instance, when you apply for a license, it's not a one-time for life sort of initiative. Your license is renewed on an annual basis. You are subjected to reviews, and particularly now as we've entered into the realm of standardization and additional protocols are being built to achieve best practices internationally, marketing agents as well as local agents are going to have to meet certain best practices and standards in order for that license to be renewed year on year and for us to continue doing businesses. So I introduced that because I really do want people to understand that it's not the wild, wild west. We're not out there doing what we want. There are checks and balances. And we do have to keep ourselves accountable to a higher standard, because at the end of the day, as a marketing agent, what we put out there is what the world sees about this country that for me, that I call home a Grenadian. So for me, it's different. I do have a stake in this country, and the citizenship that I am promoting is also the citizenship that I have and I love, right? So I just wanted to talk about the difference there. Now, in terms of impacts, I'm not going to talk too much because Thomas gave you a really good synopsis of how this industry really trickles down. We talk a lot from a marketing perspective about the benefits to the investor and why they choose Grenada and how it improves their lives, but I want to talk about how it improves us as a people and what we stand to benefit. A lot of the funding that we get goes into financial projects, the infrastructure for financial projects, and you can see and you can feel it. The Mount Kuma Road that has become such a blessing for people living on the West Coast, that was financed through this program. It has made life and access a lot more easy for people who have to ply that route on a daily basis. The St. John's River Flood Mitigation Project is another such project that has had significant impact in terms of affecting people's daily lives. We now sometimes frustratingly stop at the traffic lights, but that again has been funded through the CBI program. We look at the cricket stadium that's next door, that's again being funded through the CBI program. And people are quick to say sometimes, yes, it's infrastructure. But think about these spaces and how they impact your daily lives in a meaningful way. The fact that you can now commute in a shorter space of time means that you have more time to spend in life doing the things that really matter to you. And I think there's a lot of benefit in that. There's also, of course, the benefit of being able to reduce our debt so that we can have a most favorable standing internationally in the financial economies. We talked a lot about employment opportunities, and employment is one hand of the stick, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but think about the supply chain opportunities. I brought a client to Six Senses today who invested in the project and came back and really wanted to see his new home and see his investment. And one of the first things that we were greeted with was a selection of spices that were sourced from local farmers, right? So there you go. Again, in terms of being able to have trickle-down employment opportunities, there are farming opportunities for people who are going to be supplying raw goods, and even other agri-processing opportunities for people who are going to be supplying byproducts of our agricultural products to these industries. You think about also systems improvements. We are now dealing with people on an international scale, which means we are forced as Grenadians to improve the way that we do business on a singular level and on a multitude level here in Grenada. That requires us to lift our standards so that we now can operate at a higher level of quality, and not just, that doesn't just benefit individuals from outside who need and rely on our systems, but as locals just trying to get business done. It forces our system to work better for us. Again, freeing up time and effort for us to spend on doing the things that really matter in life. One of these systems that has been improved is the electronic health information system. We all know how important it is to be able to check in and have our records digitized and just be able to know what's going on with you whenever you go to a doctor or to any of the government health systems. So that is a significant benefit. But for me, the greatest benefit lies in the bottom, in human resource development. And we'll start from the personal development part. We talk about employment, the agencies' employments of individuals working within the space. There is something to say about being able to work in an environment where you're continuously exposed to different cultures, to different ways of life. It forces people to abandon linear ways of thinking. It opens your mind to creative and innovative problem solving. It forces you to become worldly in terms of understanding the economic, social, political issues that are happening in the world. So you have a group of people now who are being trained to not only process applications, that's what they're doing on a daily basis, but really and truly what they're being taught is how to become open-minded, worldly thinkers. And these people, whether they stay in this industry or they go on, they leave with that knowledge. They speak with that knowledge. They impact, they affect their communities around them. And they create a growth-minded mentality in Grenada that in itself has a multiplier effect that will, in the future, I believe, will have significant value for our people. So I don't look at the value as just the monetary value, what we take home, but I look at it as how we are enlightening people's minds and really and truly creating a development within them that allows them to be the kinds of resources that we need to build the Grenada that we want. And that is what CBI does. The Empower program, I'm going to leave with that one, and the Culture and Creative Industries Development Fund. Empower is a program that was developed and run by the Youth Development, and it helps young men who have been a bit unfortunate in life. It empowers them to learn personal development skills, start their own businesses, and that is all being funded through CBI. Again, meaningful ways of helping develop the seed of our nation so that they can then go out and empower themselves and empower other individuals through the work that they're going to do. The creative industry, we talk a lot about it. That fund now empowers creatives, I'm one myself, that has the ability to tap into the resources that have been so hard to get a hold of to develop their crafts. Whether it's grant funding or whether it's low interest loans, they now have a facility that they did not have accessible to them before as a creative to really and truly hone their skills and create meaningful employment for themselves. It reduces dependency on the government in the long term, allows the government in the long term to focus on more important projects and not necessarily to be feeding and creating a dependency mechanism of always having to pay for this and pay for that. So all in all, when you look at the program, it's not just that we're bringing in investors and we're allowing outside people to be our citizens. It is an exchange of value. It is an exchange of empowerment in that we're creating a value system and an empowered population by tapping into a financial resource, but also tapping into just the experience of being able to be around different cultures and understand how people outside of our bubble in this neck of the world live, how they do business, how they operate. And through that process, I think we are creating a growth mindset for our people, and it will allow us to embrace and create a better Grenada. So that being said, again, I said a lot. I didn't come to say a lot, but I thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions when I'm on the panel. Thank you.
You said a lot, but we appreciated the a lot, Nisha. Thank you for the tangible and intangible benefits that Grenadians stand to benefit from the program. Also, even more so, you broke down how Grenadians can become licensed local and marketing agents, which if persons want to have more information about that, can go to our website, www.imagrenada.gd. That's www.imagrenada.gd if you require more information on how to become a licensed agent. So moving along to Dr. Stephen Fletcher, one of our board members. Dr. Stephen Fletcher is an accomplished, multi-talented academic and practitioner serving the public, private, and non-governmental sectors. Dr. Fletcher earned his PhD from Aston University, UK, in strategy and economic development. His master's in business administration from Middlesex University, also in the UK. In 2012, Dr. Fletcher was the recipient of the Queen's Elizabeth Fellowship, which resulted in his landmark publication, Poor Commonwealth No Longer: Challenges to the Commonwealth in Achieving the UN Millennium Development Goals. He's a thought leader and host of the annual Campeche Development Discourse, covering topics such as the future of money, which examines the rise of central banks' digital currencies and private cryptocurrencies, mergers and future of cooperatives in the agriculture sector, especially the major commodities boards in Grenada, such as the Grenada Cooperative Nutmeg Association and Grenada Cocoa Association. Dr. Fletcher is an independent consultant. He is the principal consultant at Campeche Consultant and is currently program manager of Climate Smart Agricultural and Rural Enterprise Program. Dr. Fletcher joined the IMA/CBI committee in 2022. Let's welcome Dr. Stephen Fletcher.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I make my substantial points, I just want to do two things. One, make a correction, and secondly, to pay a compliment. The 2012 should be 2006. So there might be a typo there, I believe. That's when I got the Queen Elizabeth Fellowship and published this Poor Commonwealth No Longer. So that was a historical document. Secondly, I want to compliment Ms. McIntyre. Thank you very much. I was going to add my student in whom I am well pleased. In whom I am well pleased indeed. I think I taught you marketing as one of the courses. So my former student in whom I'm well pleased. Colleagues, IMA, persons present here, persons online, let me thank you very much for this opportunity to share this afternoon on this important journey of the IMA and certainly the resources that we have been able to acquire, to obtain, and the uses for which these resources have been placed. My former colleagues, the CEO, Thomas, and certainly Ms. McIntyre, have provided in-depth, on-the-ground specifics on how some of these resources have been used. And it is important for us to reflect on this, because the narratives and the debates regarding IMA and CBI abounds, from local discussions to international discussions, to regional discussions. It is an international arena in which there are multiple players, and players of all types, sizes, and kinds. So it is an issue that we need to ventilate. And certainly what we have embarked upon which started over probably 6 months or so ago, is really an attempt to get us to understand fundamentally what this new area of revenue generation, of investment, what it means for us as a people. I will want to state the following, that like most other economic sectors in any country, the IMA, former CBI, is what it represents for us. It is a stream of revenue and investment that is necessary for the development of our small island developing state, or small country, or spice country, called Grenada. So when we have these multiple discussions and narratives running, it is a sector that is now embedded, that is settled on. Certainly, I think within the confines of Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Kitts, it is an established source of income, an established source of revenue. It is a pipeline through which we earn monies that are critical for the investment and development of our countries. So I really think that the debate over the value or not of a migration program is settled. And because of that, I think it's important for us as a people to really embrace this process, for us to embrace this new pillar that we have for economic and social development, and for us to begin to change the narratives around it into a very positive display of things. The projects that have been outlined by my former colleagues certainly points to this reality. And I bet you better bet on this, there is much more to come. Grenada, as a small island developing state, has very limited room, very limited elbow space in economic policy, in revenue generation, to generate the kinds of revenue that is needed at the state level to keep services going. We always have to be regenerating and reinventing and inventing new ways of generating income. Let us reflect on it. Where we have come from as a people. Where do we earn our money? Small market size, small population, limited economic base, limited export possibilities. Our exports mainly relied on agricultural commodities. Cocoa, nutmeg, bananas, historically coffee, sugarcane. And we go through the normal cycle of what the economists call boom and bust. For 2 years, we make a whole lot of money from nutmeg, from cocoa. And then what happens afterwards? The bust comes and we decline. And then it comes again. Tourism. We gain revenue from tourism. Again, this is a very fragile sector for us. It's very fragile. We had the experience of Hurricane Ivan and what transpired. We had the experience of the financial crisis. What happened to us? We saw the plummeting of tourist dollars. Most recently, we had the experience of COVID. And what happened? Tourism plummeted. Exports plummeted. To the point where it became necessary at that point for a discussion about the merger of GCNA and GCA emerged. It emerged on the backs because these agricultural commodities found themselves in serious crisis. And if they are the ones that generate income for us, for our people to get shelter, to get roads, medical care, education, and all the other social facilities that come, we have to find ways. Our tax revenue is not sufficient in itself. That is our domestic tax revenue, is not sufficient in itself to keep this economy going, to feed our people, to provide education, to provide healthcare, to provide infrastructure. So we have to find ways, creative ways, that will generate the income that the country needs in order to survive. And it is in that struggle and that tussle for economic space. It is in that tussle of things, in the trough of trying to find the economies of things that work for us, that things like the IMA comes in, which is about travel. You know, I put this thing in a very simple way, you know. Years ago, and in the general traverse of things, I think, you know, our first set of IMA sessions, I think the chairman went through this whole year, and yourself, CEO, about the advent of, you know, global mobility, how it happens. So mankind have been traveling around the world for a long time. But you know the privilege that we have in this country? To a large extent, and we are traveling people. You go all over the world to find us. It is said there are more Grenadians of second and third generation living outside of this country than we have living internally. And we all, the first generation in particular, paid a price for citizenship. They paid a price. Whether it's by work, whether it's by any other means, we paid a price. But we have a privilege as a small developing country. And you know what that privilege we have? To say to people from all over the world who wishes to enjoy this country, who want to be part of the Grenadian family, who wants to experience life in Grenada, we say to you, if you really want to enjoy this, become a citizen. Become a citizen. We are not in the business of the hustle and tussle of selling passports. We're in the business of providing you with a comfortable space to settle in. And in exchange for that settlement, we say, you know what? Make an investment. Pay to be here. Make an investment to be here. We'll welcome you. We are small, limited land space, but here is the price that you need to pay in order to have that access. But I also want to make this further point, which address some of the issues I know that is in the public space. People say, well, you're selling these hundreds of passports. Where are you going to put these people? Well, the reality is that much of these persons will come, they will enjoy, but may not necessarily have a physical space. So we must not be traumatized at all by this issue of where we're going to find space to put all these people. Mankind is global. We are roaming the world. And more can be said about that, but I will leave this part for the moment. The other issue that I think is necessary for us to address, my colleagues have dealt with, again, the major projects. But I want you to reflect in your own way. Reflect in your own way of how these projects impact local communities. What it meant for the St. Andrew's Steel Band to be given a sponsorship, to allow them to be at the grand stage here. This is not just dollars being given out. These are young men and women who we gave the potential and the possibilities to be out there playing pan, creating a talent and a skill for themselves. What it means for the people that worked on the Mount Kuma Road, the shops that align that places, the communities that the workers came from, that at the end of the fortnight, at the end of the month, when they go into those communities to spend the dollar, what it means at that level. The notion that there's only a few persons making money out of this IMA program is a falsehood that we need to face up to and we need to articulate on. What we need to do as a people is to embrace those projects and ensure that what the economists call the multiply effect, the amount of times that money is spent in our local economy creates space for it to happen. But we also need to look at the fact that we as local persons, we must come up with our projects. We must come up with projects that we can bring to the IMA team and says, look, I want these projects to be funded. I admire a gentleman from St. David's. What's the name of that project again? St. David's Agro. who is one of the only, I think, really local person that has IMA funding. Which sector is in? We say it's only tourism, you all guys funding real estate and so forth. But he's in the agricultural sector, agro-tourism sector, right? Providing some impetus and catalyst in the agricultural sector. And we have many more that we can talk to. What we want to challenge you tonight is to really find the projects. Find the projects that you can then take to the IMA for discussion, for fleshing out, and for approval. I'm sure the CEO will be well placed to take questions in that regard and to provide some details as to how that can be done. So let us embrace this opportunity that we have. Let us see the revenues that we have shown a while ago. Let us see it as opportunities. These revenues are not revenues in themselves. They are not an end to themselves. What they represent is the possibility and the possibilities that these resources can be used for. And fundamentally, it can be used and ought to be used as a source for transformation and development of this beautiful island. We deserve it. We deserve to find creative ways to generate the revenue that we need, to generate the income that we need, to change lives. So I'm excited about the prospect of the IMA. I'm excited about the revenue generation capability. I'm excited about the fact that in the future, we can see real transformations of the lives of people, not just the infrastructure part of it, but the young men in St. Patrick, in Fore, the young men in Monkridge, in Hermitage, the young men in Guave, on the lands, in Concord, in Marigot, the young people in St. David and St. Andrew and in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. In the same way the revenues from tourism and exports and so on have been used in the past, let us embrace this opportunity. And let us begin to speak to ourselves and to our people and to the world in positive language that will allow us to consolidate this sector as an important sector. It is important, and I'm sure there's room for improvement. In the same way, by the way, there is room for improvement in cocoa and nutmeg exports. In the same way, there is improvement for tourism. There is room for fine-tuning and for developing too. Anyone challenge me and tell me there is no room for improvement in export of cocoa and nutmegs and it's okay, it's nice and dandy. After being exported in the export market for over 70 years. Right? The IMA is a baby. It's growing. I'm sure we have growing pains. We are challenged every day, morning, noon, night, by persons who are challenging the very basis on which this program is run. But we have to stand guard. We have to stand at the gates. And we have to protect it because we know what it means to us. We know what it means to us. And there is enough transparency and accountability, I'm sure, that if you want information on the program, you can find the information. Write into the office. It's published. It is there. The World Bank comes in and looks at it. The IMF, the EU, the United States, Treasury Department, and so on. It's been scrutinized. So there is nothing hanky-panky and funny going on. Please, people, this is our income stream. This is part of our developmental model. We talk development and we want development and so forth. Let us embrace this part of it. It is a settled matter. It is an income stream across the board in this country. And this is what it is. Let's stand at the gates. Let us protect it. Let us fight for it. Let's not give up on it. It is our thing. Let's defend it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. You gave us such good insight on the importance of the program for Grenada and its economy. So thank you so much, actually, to all of our panelists thus far. You've given us so much insight using your expertise in the industry, but it's been on such a formal level so far, and so we want to just dial back a little bit, have some conversation on the program. There's so much negative connotations. There's a stigma attached to the program, even though it's been around in Grenada, particularly since 2013. We still don't know so much about the program. Even in the wider Caribbean, I realize that there is a stigma attached to the program, and so we at IMA, this is why we're doing this symposium, right? To really educate the population and really allow the Grenadian public to know everything you need to know about the program, the actual reality of the program. Mr. Anthony, I'd like to start off with you. As I mentioned, even across the Caribbean, we hear so many news stories about this person was led through the program, this bad actor, this such and such name who was able to penetrate the program. Can you tell us about the Grenada's securities measures in order to protect us against these type of incidents popping up in Grenada?
Thank you for that, Ria. And I think I alluded to some of it at the beginning when I spoke about the robust due diligence process. So it's a multi-layered approach to investigating each applicant who is 17 years and older, which includes the first point of contact is the marketing agent. And the marketing agent will conduct their own KYC to determine whether they will onboard that client. Once they have decided they will, they then pass that client on to the local agent, as Nisha laid out earlier. And the local agent conduct their own KYC to determine whether they will onboard that client. Once they make a determination that they will, they then have to get that client past the bank's KYC system, right? And so the bank conducts its own KYC to make a decision as to whether the bank will accept money from this applicant. And it is only after the bank says yes that the marketing agent passes the applicant on to the local agent, their documentation, and that application is submitted to the agency. When it gets to the agency, there's again another due diligence process, which includes, as I said, the Financial Intelligence Unit. They do their own research, online desktop research. They also submit all of the information on the applicants to the Joint Regional Communication Center, which is headquartered in Barbados. And we also contract international due diligence providers, private firms that their focus is to investigate individuals in many different countries in the world. So in the source countries from which they come from. And I'll end by saying, the investigation goes back at least 10 years. And it is conducted in every country that they would have lived in that period of time for more than a year. And there's a requirement for police certificates to be submitted, birth certificate, passports, employment history, ownership, company ownership history, and a comprehensive research over that period of time, 10 years, is conducted. If the DD firms find something that causes them to go back beyond 10 years, then they will do so. But essentially, in a nutshell, it's a multi-layered approach involving many different stakeholders.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Nisha, you tend to be on the ground. You are the first point of contact for applicants coming into the program. What can you say, because we have so many concerns on the ground from Grenadians who think we're just bringing any and any person into the program. I know you hear that a lot. So what can you say of the applicants coming into the program in terms of their intentions, what motivates them, and just the type of actors coming into our program?
So what I would say essentially is that the people that I have dealt with have been attracted to Grenada's program for a plethora of different reasons. I mostly get people who are, especially the families, who are trying to secure a better future for their children. There are people who come from countries where they don't feel politically safe. They are just on the brink. They know it's coming, like they know a civil war or something is coming, and they want to ensure that there's a plan B option in case things hit the fan, right? There are those who believe that men should not be held to a border. They want to live a very global life. They want to be able to travel, to see the world, to experience all that this world has to give them. And so for those clients, they're not just investing in Grenada citizenship. Those are the kinds of clients that may get a European citizenship, a Caribbean citizenship, another citizenship, because they want to ensure that the world is at their fingertips. There are those who want to travel a little bit more easier. They probably want to travel because maybe they have health complications, and it's always challenging to have to wait on a visa to travel externally from their home countries to see a doctor. There are those who feel that their children are stigmatized because of their nationality, and again, they want to ensure that their kids can get into good schools, and so they will make that investment. For business people who are also doing cross-border transactions, access to Grenada's travel privileges, particularly those who do business with China, becomes very helpful, because as you may know, we all have visa-free access to China as a destination. And so for those who transact business, they take advantage of that. So for me, I get a lot of I want a second home. I want a second home in a safe destination, and this could be my plan B. So those are the ones that tend to come here sometimes. They look around, they might create a nexus, they may buy property, they may send their children to SGU. There are those who do business. And I would like to say that most of the clients that I interact with, they actually do come to Grenada. They want to see their home. And those are the ones that I like to deal with. From time to time, you do get unsavory characters. But again, the onus is on us as marketing agents to make that determination of who we move forward with and who we don't move forward with. And for me as a Grenadian, it's important that the client that I'm moving forward with does not compromise my business, but also does not compromise the same citizenship that I have. Because I still want to have access to this tomorrow. And so we do our best to ensure that we do our due diligence checks. We invest in a very expensive software for this process, you know? And because at the end of the day, you want to ensure that you safeguard the integrity of what you're offering, but also you want to have, like I go back to saying, people who can be impactful to Grenada. And I want to just say one more thing about this. When we think about the motivators and why people get citizenship, sometimes I think the stigma that has been attached to the industry is because people make it look like it's a luxury item, something that's just, you go down the street and you buy a pair of shoes, you buy a second citizenship. But I think we're in, if you look at history, things always evolve from a luxury to a need. And I think we're in a cycle where alternative citizenships are moving from a luxury and they're now a need. Maybe it hasn't caught up to us. And actually, maybe it has, because there are a lot of Grenadians who leave and they move to the US for a second citizenship, because for them, it's a need to elevate, to move to the next level that they want to get in their lives. And it's no different for these individuals. We sit here and we don't know that we have value. We sit on value. That client I had today that I mentioned talked about Grenada. He couldn't stop. He invested in Grenada. He heard about Grenada, but now that he was here, he's like, you don't know what you have. And this is someone who has lived in Africa, has lived in Guyana, has now lived in Jamaica, but is from Europe. And he's telling me that I don't know the value of what I have, that we don't know. And so I challenge people to be open-minded when you think about why it is that people want to have our citizenship. It's not just to go and do unsavory acts under a disguise, but it is because we sit on value. We do have a valuable piece of asset that I think we just have not put the value to in our minds. And we need to start doing that.
As you were speaking, Nisha, a story came back to me, and I believe you were actually the one who relayed that to me. that there was an applicant who tears in his eyes as he got his second citizenship so that his daughters could have access to education. Because the part of the world that he lives in, well, they live in, his daughters did not have access to education. And that is a privilege that we take for granted here in Grenada, that, you know, to persons on the outside is invaluable.
The mere fact that we can go and say all the things that we say negatively on social media in Grenada tells you have our privileges. We have freedom of speech. Some people live in countries where they can't say boo, you know, for fear of being ostracized. And so you need to sit back and think about that. A lot of us sleep, our doors are unlocked. There's a safety issue. We have good quality education. We have the best air. We're one of 7 countries in the world with the best air. That tells you about just how people look at us from a health perspective. Yes, we have challenges with our medical care, but just our natural vegetation, our natural island as a whole is a health therapy for some people, depending on where they come from. So I challenge us to look beyond. We may not have the conventional luxuries that you will see in first world nations, but there is true value here, and there's true value to what we have as citizens.
Thank you, Nisha. Moving along, if we were to just touch on the NTF, the National Transformation Fund, and this is actually one of the avenues of investment under the program. Dr. Fletcher, we hear a lot from Grenadians coming to the office. Why doesn't the agency allocate money here? Or why doesn't the agency put some money in this or into that? Can you tell us about the level of autonomy or the level of influence that the agency has over the allocation of these funds? Do we have any influence at all?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very useful question. I think a very, very important one as well. The IMA basically has no autonomy whatsoever on the allocation of funds at the NTF, the National Transformation Fund. Basically, these are funds that goes to the government, and the government in its wisdom decides on how to allocate those funds between projects. So financing of the second phase of the General Hospital, the financing of roads, of various things, that is within the realm of the government of Grenada. The IMA is not involved in that. What we are involved in, as indicated before, is things like sponsorships, the kind of corporate, things that we will do, and such. Like within our budget, within the IMA budget, there are allocations that we make to help education, to support education initiatives, cultural initiatives, and so forth. But in terms of the NTF and the use of those funds at the national level, this is within the realm of government. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Dr. Fletcher. So at this point, we'd like to open the floor for questions. I know it's getting down to a late point now. It's about to be almost 7 o'clock. So if anyone from the audience has any questions, don't be shy. Can you go to the mic in the middle? You can just use, yes, okay.
Thank you very much. I want to begin by congratulating each one of you panelists for so very eloquently articulating the program and making it much clearer. For me, I've learned a lot, and I have much more information than I had before. I am very impressed with what I hear, what I saw, in terms of the projects that are funded under CBI. I've seen the 6 senses and the beach house and Intercontinental, I believe, is one of those. And then we have the lone Grenadian St. David's Agro. And my question is, as a local investor, if we have anyone here has an interest in getting into the program as a local investor, whether it be agri-processing or real estate, what are the steps should we follow? And are there any special provisions for local investors that are being contemplated or are presently available?
That is indeed a timely and excellent question. Thank you for that. So at the moment, there is no special carve-out for local projects. But I'm happy to report that a subcommittee of the board, the committee, led by Dr. Sandiford, did some research, and a paper was written to advocate for, well, beyond advocation, to recommend a special carve-out for locals under the projects component of the program. That recommendation is now before the Ministry of Economic Development, and so I don't want to say too much about it, but it's coming. There is a recommendation. The work is being done to make sure that the legal piece is covered, an SRO, by way of regulation. And we expect that that's going to happen before the end of the year. So by the time we come back to the next symposium, we'll be able to give you details of how that will, what that encompasses. So essentially, we're looking at reduced fees for becoming an approved developer. We're looking at a smaller capital that you can raise under the program. We're looking at whether we insist on the 20% equity that's required for tourism projects, those kinds of things. So there's a comprehensive paper recommendation. It's being reviewed by the ministry, by Economic Development Ministry, and as I said, it should be rolled out before the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Do we have any other questions?
Oh, and sorry, the process to apply. We have a young lady in the audience here, very competent young lady, Arlene Hayes. She's what's called our project coordinator. And it is through Arlene that you will table an application to be considered an approved developer. Before doing so, you can sit with her and she will take you through the process, what the expectations are, what the requirements are. So feel free to call into the agency and we can make an appointment for anyone to have an audience with Ms. Hayes. DCO, you wanted to comment?
Yes, I just wanted to add here as well that we have other local, successful local projects. Pointe-à-Petite, Calavini is another, Hideaway, another, and we also have, so those are the three, right? So we have 2 other completed local projects, yeah?
Thanks for that.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm too must join with Ms. Andel and see how impressed I am with the quality of presentation and clearing up some of the misconceptions that I've had over the years. But I must ask a couple questions because it's in my nature to. I notice there's a somewhat higher concentration or focus in the southeast to the southern part of the country in terms of the investment projects. Do the applicants, is there a body that would see that, okay, we need to kind of diversify and expand beyond that region to have probably some rural development take place in the St. Andrew area in particular, probably in the agricultural sector, in the agritourism sector, kind of? Is there a body responsible for vetting and kind of guiding the applicants to move into a particular direction?
Currently, that is not the case. What has happened historically is a developer would come to the agency with an application, with a proposal for a project. And you would know largely that the tourism sector is located in St. George, right, on this side of the island. So we've been largely just allowing or waiting for developers, for investors to come to us with a project idea. One of the things we've been talking about to change that is for a multi-agency, multi-department approach to, one, identifying the areas of the economy that we'd like to see the funds flow into, and then secondly, to create project documents to fund the kind of projects that we want to fund under the program, and then we go shopping for a private sector partner. Yeah, so you'll see that coming down the pipe. But short answer is that does not currently exist. Historically, it's just been people coming to us with their ideas. We assess the idea, we assess the proposal, and we make a recommendation as to whether they should be approved or not.
All right. The second question, it has to do with, as Nisha was saying, that some unsavory characters may probably make applications and slip through the cracks. What is the process for revocation? Is there a process for revoking the citizen, and would it cost us anything in any way? Would we have to reimburse or refund them the initial injection?
The short answer is no. And yes, there's a revocation process, and it's multi-layered. So first, it can be simply the cancellation of the passport, so they cannot travel. So it depends on the infraction, right? And government makes this determination, not the agency. And then there's deprivation of citizenship, if the government so determines that the infraction meets that level, that the citizenship should be deprived. There is also the opportunity for the citizen to take it to court, right? But yes, the legislation allows the minister to make a decision to deprive the person of their citizenship, should there be, well, many different reasons, but it could be, one could be that material information was omitted from the application and we discovered it subsequently, or that they had an infraction done post-citizenship. But it's entirely up to the minister to make that determination. Of course, we advise.
I just want to add something here, because Ian mentioned things that slip through. Sometimes, when you look at a situation, I shouldn't say sometimes, the whole process of due diligence is backward facing, right? You look at someone's history, what they have done up to a certain point. Some people might have had a very clean history, and God forbid something happens after they become a citizen and they commit an infraction. It doesn't mean that the IMA has failed in their role. It just means that up to that point in time, that person was a law-abiding citizen. And we can't control that. But as Thomas just mentioned, there are steps that the government has put in place to ensure that due diligence can occur thereafter. So if it does mean, like you said, disqualification, revocation, that can ensue. But I just want to drive home the fact that sometimes when you see these situations come into the fore, it's not necessarily that a government or an investment migration agency didn't do their job, or that the due diligence providers didn't do their job. Sometimes it's just that some people were good people up until that time and didn't have an opportunity present to them as it has post becoming a citizen.
That's a really good point you make, Nisha, in that there is continuous monitoring of the applicants even after they become citizens. So there's continuous monitoring by our international due diligence providers, but there's, importantly, continuous monitoring by the Joint Regional Communication Center, and they will update us periodically if something changes. And then we can make a decision as to whether we should deprive the individual of citizenship. One really good case in point is sanctions, right? We operate in a really dynamic sanctions environment as it relates to the war in Ukraine. And so today someone may not be on the international sanctions list who is a Russian or Belarusian, but tomorrow some member of the international community decide that they should be on the sanctions list. And we need to have the opportunity to make a decision that should they become a sanctioned person, that we deprive the citizenship.
All right, if I may, Madam Facilitator, just pop in here on the two issues. Again, I think Ian raised two very critical issues that I want to lay in on. One is the issue of the rural or the urban drift in terms of the investments occurring there. Rest assured, as one of the hats I wear is that of the head of the Rural Development Unit. And you can rest assured that there is as part of the whole reform and development process that is now being considered within the IMA, rural development is high on the list. I want you to rest assured on that, and I will do everything possible to encourage that, because development must not be lopsided. We got to seek as much as possible to have even spaces, but we must also bear in mind that as an agent, we can only do so much to influence the investment, the dispersion of the investment. The investors come in generally and they have done their research and they have their own ideas as to what they want to invest in and where. Our role as the recipient of, or the possible recipient of that investment, is to seek as much as possible to influence where that goes. And this is where the issue of policies, development policy comes into place. Geographic policies to aid in the development process. So I want to reassure my people from the rural areas that in this process, you're not forgotten. Development in rural communities are not forgotten. It is very much on the agenda. The second point I want to make, which I just want to, as a member of the committee, member of the board, I want to make the following points. One is that I think for all of us on the board, the most nervous time in our lives is when we come to press under the action button to say approve. It is nerve-wracking because we have a series of documents that we go through from, as explained by the CEO, reports from FAU, reports from external agencies, they are very detailed reports. And sometimes I look at these reports and I say to myself, I wouldn't like to be applying to Grenada for citizenship because it really takes you into very minute detail of the people's lives. Very detailed. But why is it so probably nerve-wracking for us is this. I think we operate with a philosophy within the actual committee, spoken and unspoken, which says that we will do our best possible to ensure that no bad actors get through. We'll do our best, and we do our best to make sure bad actors doesn't, and not only the board, but also the persons in the office, right? That does all the initial threading and so on. A new CEO who make your recommendations as well. I depend on the CEO recommendation a lot to decide how my vote is going to go, but also with the information before us. But with regards to the thinking of the board and the committee, as I said, is that in the process, we really seek to ensure that we get the best possible persons that meet the criteria that we have outlined, which is stringent, which is robust, yeah? And the philosophy is that, yes, we do our best here, and God forbid, God forbid, you have no control over those persons, but after, as Ms. McIntyre has said, that after granting of that citizenship, something happens. Something happens that can be explosive, that can be global. And I can tell you, the persons that apply for any global citizenship under any of the programs that exist globally, these programs are heavily scrutinized by the international media. They're heavily scrutinized and heavily published. Articles abound every day on these matters. So I want to assure Grenadians here and abroad, persons online and so forth, that we really do our best, and we are doing our best to make sure we protect the name, image, and sanctity of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. We have another question on the floor.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Ms. McIntyre, the information that you gave us was quite great information, but you left out something very important. Our passport gives us visa-free access to 178 countries. I know you know that, right? That it's, so people, there are a lot of countries that people are unable to travel. They only have, you may be from like Nigeria or Pakistan, and you only have access to like 64 countries to travel visa-free or something like that. So our passport is indeed a golden passport because of the access to so many countries. We have relationships with so many countries. But I wanted to touch on something. I think for the IMA, I think we can also, and the government, both, many times what happens with these projects is that the country itself, our slate is clean. We have nothing on the board. So the investor comes in and dictates what happens. And I think it's apropos that we begin to put something on the board. So for example, let's suppose we say that for the next 10 years or so, we would like to have a 100-mile highway. And so that's something that's in the future plan. So it's on the board. So an investor comes in and they invest in that. Let's suppose we decide to have a hatchery for fish ponds or something like that. That's on the board so that we can steer the investor into that area. So we need to put something on the board. It's very important. I think sometimes we just let the investors come in and they come in with a business plan and they sort of dictate what happens. I think it's time that we begin to do this comprehensive planning, that we have sort of futuristic things that we need in Grenada so that it can be funded through that channel. I think if we need an international airport, whatever new things that we need to do, I believe it should be done. So I think that you should maybe think about taking that into consideration.
If I may, so I think that's what I alluded to when I said that we look at, for future, we look at a multi-agency, multi-department approach to determine where we want the funds to flow, where we want the investment to go, rather than what happens now, right, which is someone comes with a business plan and we say that's a good idea. So we will guide the investment into particular areas of the economy.
Right.
Yeah. So I support what you're saying.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions on the floor?
So good evening. Thank you very much for all the information that has been shared. So I'll give some context and then I'll go into the question. So recently I've been doing lots of research on investment migration. And one of the trends in the industry is that of post-migration services. I know we're 10 years into our program and we're still in defense mode. We're spending lots of energies educating people to defend what we have. But the industry is growing, and so we need to keep up with the pace at which the industry is growing, and definitely the demand for second citizenship. So my question is the IMA considering post-migration services and opening opportunities for Grenadians to have businesses in the post-migration services? So for example, post-migration services include educational services, because second citizens are looking for educational services. They're looking for business opportunities in their second home countries. So that's an area that is where the industry is expanding to. So what are we doing so that we can tap into these opportunities while at the same time continuing to educate on what the program has done for us so far? Thank you.
Well-researched question, I think. And I think I'll start by saying that we are here in terms of defensive mode because for 9.5 years, we didn't interact with the community in terms of the program. And we left that space for people to invent their own ideas of how the program works. And so this is why the committee and the agency made a decision to start engaging with the community in terms of the program, to demystify and to counter the misinformation. So I agree with you, we should not be at this stage, but unfortunately we are, because we didn't spend time in the early days to lay out the program, the benefits of the program, how the program works. As it relates to the services, I think as a private person, private sector person, you can jump in with some of the opportunities, concierge services, for example, because many of them travel here. Yeah, there are other post-citizenship services like getting IDs. Some individuals want to register as taxpayers, for example. So there are areas that you can get into. I don't think that the agency is going to directly become involved. Perhaps what we can do is a facilitator in terms of information, information sharing, in terms of opportunities beyond being a local agent, marketing agent, or developer. But currently exist these opportunities which you spoke of, concierge services, assisting people with other after citizenship services. And I believe Nisha, being a marketing agent, has more information.
I would say that the industry does exist here because the role that we play with these clients, it doesn't end at citizenship. To me, that's when the relationship really starts to flourish, because as they become true Grenadians and they try to build a nexus with their new home, it does present a need, rightfully, as you mentioned, for additional services. So there is definitely an opportunity for Grenadians to benefit from being able to provide these services to these new investors. A lot of it is done right now through the local agents that would have processed for them. As I am a local-based international marketing agent, I do post-naturalization services. That is part of what I do, because when you form a relationship with a client, sometimes they just feel more comfortable continuing that relationship with us. But I say this to say, we work with partners as well. I can't do everything. So it's about creating the partnership with those entities that you see that are registered on the IMA's website that are locally based, and trying to create synergy. Because there are entities that I would reach out to. If someone needs a home, I'm not in real estate like that. I'm going to reach out, I might call this one right there, and say, well, I have a client that need a property. Tell me what you have, or sometimes they need a place to rent. So you are right. It is an opportunity for Grenadians to earn additional income. And I will beckon anyone here to do the research, get in contact with those entities that do work directly with the investors, and see if there are opportunities for synergies, because the industry is already here in Grenada.
So I suggest you give Nisha a call, and perhaps you guys can work something out.
I see we have another question on the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I would firstly like to thank the panel. I think today's discussion was very illuminating for me, and I really appreciate the way that the impact of investment migration was highlighted and emphasized. So there are concrete ways that we can see it impacting Grenada. I would like to comment, though, because I think that, as just acknowledged by Mr. Anthony, there was sort of a silence for several years from CBI and now IMA. And I can recall, I think this was 2019, there was this huge Al Jazeera sort of expose on CBI initiatives in the Caribbean, like particularly the OECS, and Grenada was not painted in a positive light. And to my recollection, there was no real response from CBI, from any local stakeholder. So I think that this initiative is really great in sort of combating and demystifying the whole system. However, I think that I would love to have more involvement from the other players in citizenship by investment. And by that, I mean that IMA is sort of the first step, but there's also a role for immigration, for national security, and even the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I think it would be really great if those voices were also included in this kind of discussion. And I also kind of wanted to make a comment about the perception of migration. It's a really controversial topic, like not only in Grenada, but globally. And I think that, I don't know if this is how it always was or if this is an element of human nature, but I think we kind of look at things as a zero-sum game. So it's like there's only 10 resources. So if more people come in, that means less for everybody. But again, I think that today's discussion really showed that people coming in actually bring more with them. And I also want to say that it would be really great if we kind of emphasize the human aspect of migration. So Ms. McIntyre as well as Ms. Book, you both mentioned people fleeing civil war, people who are at risk of being prosecuted for maybe their persecuted, thanks, for their political affiliations or lifestyle or whatever. And Grenada is sort of a safe haven in that way. So I think that it would be nice if we kind of illuminate like what's going on out there, how Grenada sort of helps the international community in that sense and helps individuals, because if we focus on the things that we have in common, that kind of combats elements of like xenophobia. And also as an island, I think that because we're like this singular entity, although we're a part of CARICOM, OECS, and the wider international community, it's kind of hard to visualize how people outside live. We're very accustomed to our own way of life, and we take for granted the lifestyles that we're able to live. So again, just emphasizing like the human elements and how these people integrate into Grenada, how they benefit Grenada, not only through their investment, but also their culture, their perspective, how diversity is a good thing. I think that would really enhance like the communications campaign. And that's the end of my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Very well put. Very well put. And Madam Moderator, may I make a couple of comments?
Sure.
Yes, very well put. Thank you so much for that. And I think you've given the DCO and the Marketing and Communications Officer, Rhea Berg, ideas for the next iteration of the program,
Yes,
in terms
and
of the facilitators and the people who should be involved.
If
So
I may,
thank you
Mr.
very much for
Anthony,
that.
on that point,
Yeah.
we continue to tailor the symposiums as we receive feedback, such as yours, Deidre, actually. So we will actually take this into consideration as we do the next symposium. We've actually changed up today's program based on feedback from the last symposium.
Excellent. And also, to your point about the contribution of these individuals beyond the investment, and the fear of people moving here. I just want to comment that there are a few people who have moved here. So 1%, if we're lucky, will matriculate. Most of them would not move here unless there is some global incident. But the ones who have actually moved here have been employers. So creators of employment opportunity. Is it spoon and
Knife and fork.
Knife and fork, excuse me.
Grenada Enterprise.
Yes.
We also have Mount Hartman Bay and
I have my team
Estate
laughing
and
at me.
Villas. Aqua Blue Water.
Yes. And so they've come here, yes, they have moved here. But what have they done? They have created employment opportunities for themselves and for locals. So investing beyond the investment to become a citizen. Also, to that point, I want to emphasize that we are creating a diaspora desk, an officer of diaspora affairs. And that is intended to build a relationship with the, for want of a better word, IMA diaspora, so that they can, through this mechanism, learn more about Grenada, learn more about investment opportunities that are beyond becoming a citizen, but also many of them want to participate in terms of philanthropy to make a social impact. And some of them also want to lend their or volunteer their services, their professional services. So they may be a specialist surgeon, for example, and they want to come to the hospital to impart that knowledge, to help train doctors here, free of cost, things like that. So we're creating this office to be able to reach out, build a relationship, and coordinate all of those efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. We have a question from online, Ms. Purcell.
Not really. been checking. We have lots of persons watching. I think the persons here are doing a very good job in asking those questions because we haven't seen any of the platforms. Actually, I came here with one purpose, to ask our last speaker, are you looking for employment at the moment? Just thought I'd lighten the room a little bit.
Deidre, Mr. Anthony just spoke of a position that's open.
I think you should call Nisha as well.
All right, do we have any other questions from the floor?
So I'm going to call you out because I see you're not coming up. You're looking back. So as I walked in, I was engaged in a conversation about how the program could benefit local people, local investment opportunities. And I think you laid out a really good case for it. So do you want to share with us your idea? Thank you so much.
A pleasant good evening to everybody. Well, let me just say Nisha is my niece, okay? So it's the McIntyres, right? Sorry. All right, I was speaking to Mr. Anthony while we were downstairs about a project that I have, and I think Director, myself and him had a long discussion on this. It is about developing where we can move all of the concentration is on the south of the island. And what we do have is our rural areas not focus on. A typical example, St. Mark's is our poorest village, our poorest parish on the island, but they have lots of opportunity to change the financial landscape of that parish. St. Mark's is noted to have the best quality water in Grenada. We just saw hurricanes, we saw the volcanoes in St. Vincent, we saw all of the activities that have caused our local producers not able to produce enough water for Grenada and for the other islands. We also have a situation where Grenada does not have any juice processing. We lost all that we had in the past, and we have new technologies that we want to do. And I want to know if the IMA has anything in place to be able to make local Grenadians, through the investments that are taking place, let me use the right word, I want to be very fair, millionaires. So we amplifying the investment into our local Grenadians who have the ideas, who have the know-it-all to ensure that we can change the landscape locally. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much again. I think panelists here has done pretty well. Young lady, you have mapped out a sort of program of work for the IMA. Thank you very much, because among the things I've heard this evening is one is the need for certainly the IMA to become proactive and promote while defending, but promote at the same time the turf. I also hear the need for us to do research, to be able to guide investors in successful projects. In fact, I recall, I think Mrs. Handel is here. Mrs. Handel, you may recall at the Grenada Development Bank, where we worked together for a while, we did develop something called project profiles. And these project profiles were developed to aid small businesses who want to invest. We developed some 25 project ideas as to where people can invest in. And they were mainly in the agro-processing sector, agro-industrial sector. In fact, I was quite heartened recently, Mrs. Handel, when I went to the GIDC. and they still have copies of those profiles on their shelves. So I am hearing, coming out from our youth here, that IMA needs to do things like that as well, and from other speakers, where we can help guide and influence investments. I heard that as well. The third thing that I heard, which is very important, I think, and very useful for us as an agency, as we move forward in this realm of things, is the extent to which we go beyond just these forums, but to get involved in real education of our public. And fourthly, and very important, the lady sitting next to Ms. Purcell, who raised the idea of the post services. And this is why I said earlier on, the dollar sign is one thing, but what this program offers is really opportunities for persons to grow and become wealthy, as Mr. McIntyre said, to become millionaires, right? Some of us who are old enough would recall when St. George's University started here. There were lots of suspicions, lots of negative narratives about SGU and what it's going to do, and about all kinds of stories. But now it is accepted, it's now part of the annals. It is so important for GDP, for employment generation. And certainly I think Mr. McIntyre probably created some millionaires in the process. So like everything that is new, we're going to expect to find that there is some pushback, there is some misunderstanding, there is negative. But eventually, please, I want to encourage you, as the young lady has challenged us to do, is to look at, and so on, is to look at the services that follow. Nisha has a very good clue on that as well, and that is important. The final point I want to make, and I think we're coming to the close of the session, maybe not quite, okay, is that the CEO made a comment, and he was showing an example in which he mentioned Russia and some other state. I just want to remind us, not that he was making the point I'm about to, I just want to emphasize that Grenada has stopped receiving Russian applications. Am I correct, Ms. Purcell? We have stopped receiving Russian applications for quite, pardon? And it's a hard stop, I'm reminded. It's a very hard stop. So I do not want anyone here or listening or any news medium that may pick up a comment in which the name Russia is mentioned to give any falsification of what's happening with our program. So I just want to reiterate that point, and I'm reminded that it is a hard stop, all right, which you made months ago, okay? Over a year ago. Yeah, over a year. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Doc. So yeah, to be clear, the Russian comment was merely as it relates to the sanctions environment and not to do with applicants. We put that to bed. We accepted our last application on the 31st of March, 2023. Yes, we continue to process those applications because it was a significant number. And we are down to less than 50 of those left to clear out of the system. So yes, to be clear, that acceptance of applications from Russians ended on the 31st of March 2023. The comment regarding Russia tonight was in relation to the sanctions environment, so that we have approved some Russians, and no one who is on a sanctions list is approved. They will be automatically denied. So the point I was making is if they subsequently show up on a sanctions list, then we'll have to make decisions post-citizenship. So I hope the point is clear. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. We just want to encourage persons who are watching online. You can submit your questions. We have various platforms. That's the IMA Grenada Facebook page, the TNR Communications Facebook and YouTube page, the GIS pages as well. So you can also submit your questions online. Ms. Bristol, you have one for us now?
Yes, I do. So this one from one of our online viewers. Since the recent restrictions of applications from Russians, where are the applications coming from now in terms of top 5? So let me repeat that. Since the recent restrictions of applications from Russians, where are the applications coming from now?
So for 2024, the lead demographic is Nigeria. Second is China. Third is, as a country, USA. As a region, the United Arab Emirates. I say that because there are many people from the UAE who live in the UAE who are not from the UAE. So this is why I'm saying as a region. So that would be where the applications are coming from currently. And yes, Nisha wanted me to just emphasize the USA component. That has grown. We've seen an uptick in that country, in that demographic over the last couple of years. And I think we can all imagine why that is so. But to the extent, the uptick is so significant that there are 2 major international marketing agents who have increased their footprint of offices across the US in anticipation of even more growth coming out of that market. So I would not be surprised in 25, 26 that the US become a member of the top 3 demographics who submit applications to the program.
It goes back to the question about value, right? And us understanding what we sit on. You have, people tend to think that, it's only citizens from the African states, from the Middle Eastern states that can find value in our citizenship. Here you have a first world nation, Americans, who are eager to become citizens of Grenada. For some of them, the ones that I've dealt with, and I've had quite a few American clients myself, not all of them are looking to renounce their American citizenship, but they just want that plan B option. They're looking to hedge their future risk because they're living in an uncertain country in an uncertain time. And to them, the best option, the best second option for them is our little island. So that should provoke us to really and truly sit and look at this citizenship that we have and the value that we should be seeing in it, and understand that people are not trying to come here because they're trying to escape something or they're trying to use us for unsavory actions, but they're trying to get our citizenship because it is worth something to them.
And beyond the plan B for Americans is the reality that not every country is welcoming to Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so in some places, they enter as a different nationality, right, for security reasons. So that too is one of the reasons why we're seeing the uptick in applications.
Thank you, Nisha and Mr. Anthony. Do we have any other questions from the floor? We encourage you to take the opportunity as we have our experts here from the industry. Okay, so I just have one more question, actually, that is a burning question I see all the time on various platforms online. Mr. Anthony, you're not from Grenada, but in Grenadian political space, 2 words you hear a lot in Grenada: transparency and accountability. What are some of the measures that the agency, or the program rather, takes to avoid any debacles, you would say, under transparency and accountability?
Well, I think this is a prime example of the transparency component, right? Here we are. This is the 4th iteration of this program where we come before you and we have frank discussions and we open the floor to questions. So this is the prime example of that. But in addition to that, there are multi-layers. So the agency has reporting responsibility to the committee, of which Dr. Fletcher is a member, and Deputy Chair Moses is at the back there. Every month we meet, and every month we have to report to the committee. Some months we meet multiple times. So that's one level of reporting. There's also a requirement for monthly reporting and quarterly reporting and annual reporting to the Ministry of Finance. And that happens periodically. Sometimes we're late, but we do submit the various reports. So, and in addition to that, we publish information. First, it was on the Ministry of Finance website. This year, we took a decision that we will publish the information on the IMA site. So you go on the IMA site and you'll see quarterly reports on the website in terms of the revenue, in terms of the demographic of the individuals who apply for this program, in terms of the number of citizenship that are granted. Beyond the application number, the number of citizenship that are granted and where they're from. And then there is this 6-monthly report that is tabled before Parliament. Once it's tabled in Parliament, it becomes for public, available for public consumption. So again, many different layers of reporting, transparency, accountability. Tonight is a prime example of the fact that the agency engages in that on a regular basis.
And I'd just like to reiterate, these reports that Mr. Anthony referred to can be found on the IMA website, which is www.imagrenada.gd. Just to reiterate once more, www.imagrenada.gd. I know I've been saying it a lot, but we really do want as much persons as possible to go onto the website. We have so much information on the program that you can access at all times.
And one other area of reporting, and this is a self-plug, I publish on my LinkedIn page the various reports, quarterly reports, and there's also a CEO's desk that I publish quarterly on the agency's social media website as well as my LinkedIn page.
Thank you for the shameless plug, Mr. Anthony. Okay, so... Sure, go ahead.
Yes, one burning question as I sat there and I was thinking as you were talking. These new citizens, they're all subject to alien landholdings license requirement to own property, yes? I'm assuming?
Once they become citizens, no.
No?
No.
So they're no longer an alien. So you get, okay.
They are citizens, yes.
Right. As a Grenadian, I am a citizen of CARICOM. Under CSME, I can move freely. I can set up my business, and theoretically, that's what the CSME allows, also within the OECS. So I'm just thinking this through. So these new citizens, of course, because once I have my CSME certificate, I can move and work in any other CARICOM island, any other CARICOM country freely, own property, etc. That same courtesies would apply to our new citizens?
Yes.
And do you know if that has been actually used?
No, it has not.
No, I know that we're moving towards standardization within all of the countries that offer the CBI. Has that been discussed, and are there any areas of concern in that area?
It has been discussed at the level of the heads, the prime ministers. It has been discussed at the technicians level, so CEOs and chairs of boards regionally. It has been discussed. And the overarching point, I think, has come out of these discussions is the fact that these individuals are not seeking employment. They're seeking investment opportunities, right? So largely, even when they do move, they'll be creating employment opportunities. In order for you to be able to afford a 200 and minimum 35,000 US dollar investment, I don't think you're going to be coming to seek employment, is largely the view. It's, as I said, it's investment. It's just for us to direct the investment where we want the investment to go, whether we want it alternative energy or whatever area of the economy we want it to. So I don't think there's any fear that they're coming to take jobs. I have not seen that in any of the islands. What they do come to do is to make investments, create employment for themselves, and create employment for others. Most of the applicants are entrepreneurs. Most of them. Ultra high and high net worth individuals. I hope that answers your question.
But we must think forward. We must think of the children of these investors. We must think of the next generation. And they wanting to be here, especially as you mentioned, the Americans that are now on the uptake. And because there are many other provisions for CARICOM in terms of the portability of national insurance and all of these things that we'll have to give some consideration to later on, I'm sure. But it's something we should keep at the back of our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really valid question, really valid point. And as I said, it's discussed at those various levels. Yeah.
We have 2 online questions. Ms. Bristol?
Okay, people are really engaged. So online we have another question. What about encouragement to national living abroad to provide investment and return home?
Yeah, certainly this is yet another good question coming out from the diaspora, I suppose. Yeah, again, the message is that you're all welcome. They will form part of the new regime that we are about to unfold, where they can participate and be part of that regime as Grenadians living overseas. And certainly, I don't think that position has been filled as yet, but we are in fact in the process of recruiting someone to look at diaspora affairs, specifically targeting the diaspora. So we are making moves in that area, and they need to remain, the person asking the question, as well as the person in the diaspora, need to remain tuned in, because information will be made available, and so that they can access the correct information. Yeah.
Right. So the final question I have from online. We mentioned applicants making Grenada their second home. Can you provide a full breakdown of purchase that are freehold versus share ownership of units for 2023 and 2024? If I can interject here, they're asking for a full breakdown. As a matter of fact, based on feedback we've been getting and based on the traction we've been getting in terms of where we are, and hopefully we'd be by the next session we're going to be having, we will hone in a little bit more on that in terms of projects, the value proposition of those projects, what possibilities can be for Grenadians, and what the offerings can look like. So in terms of giving detail, so you can actually, I'm admonishing that person actually write into us, or they can have a discussion on it, but it's something that we will treat with thoroughly when we get into that next leg of discussion. So we would want to hone in on that a little bit more, yeah? But I don't know if, Mr. Anthony, if you just want to give a general something on it, or we can just defer it to our next session.
Well, I would need you to go through that again, Carleen, because I'm not quite sure I understand it fully.
Right, so we mentioned applicants making Grenada their second home. Can you provide a full breakdown of purchases that are freehold versus the share ownership? Okay. Yeah, so it's...
Okay, so yeah, now it's clear. So the approved projects are largely resort, hotel-type properties. And so the majority of them would be done on the share ownership arrangement, all right? And then the unit is put back into a rental pool where the individual, the investor, has an opportunity to get a return on the investment once the project becomes operational. So that they are not homes, if I understand it correctly, that are available under the program. It's hotel plans, resort plans. You purchase a unit or share in a unit or share in a vehicle, yes, a special purpose vehicle, and the unit is put back into a rental pool from which you can earn revenue to cover the cost of ownership, and maybe you get some in your pocket as well. Nisha, you want to contribute?
Just for context to the question, just in case you may not understand what the question meant when they're talking about shares and they're talking about full ownership. So the real estate component of the CBI program in Grenada allows individuals to invest in an approved real estate project either through one of three ways. So you can either apply at the lowest level, which is an investment into a share, a fractional interest in a property. As Mr. Anthony said, right now most of it is an investment in a share in the company that owns a resort. Or you can invest and earn a titled interest in a multi-titled unit. So you get a fractional interest again in a unit that is part of a property. So you don't own anything outright. So most of these individuals, they invest that way, they become a citizen, they earn an annual return once those properties are operational and profitable. And then after the 5-year period, they have the ability to sell it if they so feel, or keep it and continue to earn income if they see that it remains an asset. It also means that those individuals, although they have invested in real estate, it's not a real and true real estate investment, so they may still come to Grenada and look to purchase property like regular Grenadians outside of the project. Then you have the higher echelon, which is investments into full leasehold or full freehold properties. And that starts at a minimum of $350,000. And developers price their properties over that threshold. So for instance, we used to point at PT Calamini as a really good example. They have freehold villas and freehold condos that they've sold as part of the program. I believe there are 1 or 2 villas at Silver Sands that's also part of the CBI program that can be sold, and these villas go for over the millions, right? So it just means that when you're talking freehold, the pool is less and the pickings are less. You don't find much investors going for the full freehold or the full leasehold option because it means that they're paying significantly higher for property. And if you think about it, it's the government is the one that sets the minimum threshold. So right there, you know that you're going to be paying over $350,000 US for a property, plus the additional government fees. Because when that person finishes paying for their citizenship, they're not paying $350,000. They're probably paying closer to $500,000, depending on the size of their application. Because you have your investment that you pay, and then you have your government fee, which starts as a minimum of $50,000, depending on your family. Then you still have your associated fees that you pay. So that starts to add up. So it's not just $350,000 and you walk away. You're talking closer to a $500,000 investment at the lower price point. So really quickly, that figure starts to add up. So you don't find a lot of investors willing to go that route. If they're really interested in Grenada, they may go at the cheaper end, the share option or the NTF, and then purchase real estate in Grenada as a citizen.
And I just want to emphasize the point that you cannot just invest anywhere across the island, right? These are approved projects after being vetted by the agency, by the committee, and a recommendation is made to cabinet. So again, you cannot just come into the island and make an investment anywhere. It's in these particular approved projects that you make the investment in the way that we described earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Thank you, Nisha. So we'd like to just close off the question and answer segment here because we can go all night, right? However, we'd just like to just mention that the panelists will stay around for a bit after, so you can still ask your questions if you have any follow-up questions or any other comments that you wanted to make. So now, at the agency, we're very appreciative people. We like to give back. We like to express our gratitude in tangible ways sometimes, you know. So for all of the persons who asked questions this afternoon, Ms. Purcell will now go around and express our gratitude to all of you for asking questions.
Miss Purcell, I think you're going to need more items. So does Miss Andel get 2?
Oh, gosh. Oh. Thank you, Ms. Purcell. We'd also just like to recognize Ms. Akira Lessie, our newest board member that we realized she slipped in a little bit earlier. We'd just like to recognize and say goodnight to you. Also, I'd like to recognize the Terror team. You all came out in your numbers this afternoon, and we're so grateful to see you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So as we close off tonight, I'd just like to give a quick thank you. Through insightful discussions led here this afternoon by not just our speakers, but our participants, you really contributed to the discourse. Especially teacher, thank you. We have explored how this initiative drives economic growth, enhances public services, and ultimately improves the quality of life for all Grenadians. As we move forward from this symposium, let us carry forward the spirit of informed dialogue and community engagement. Each of us plays a critical role in shaping the future of Grenada through our understanding and participating in initiatives such like the CBI program. Together, we can ensure that its benefits resonates deeply within our communities and contributes meaningfully to our collective prosperity. I extend my sincere gratitude to all of you who contributed today to the discussions, our panelists, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, Ms. Nisha McIntyre, Mr. Thomas Anthony, all of you who asked your questions here on the floor and online as well. Your active participation has enriched this event and reinforced our commitment to transparency, as we said, and empowerment in the realm of investment migration. Also, a special thank you to IMA Communications for your continued support to the agency's endeavors, and also TNR Communications. They're always here with us. All right.
Since to fill these out, we continue to tailor our presentations, our symposiums around this feedback. So it's real things we actually take into consideration. So we really, really appreciate your feedback. So please fill out, especially put your email addresses there so that we can keep you informed in terms of additional information coming from the agency. So remember to fill out and leave with us before you leave.
Thank you, Ms. Bristol, for that. Before we close off, we'd just like you to engage with the agency. We are at Burns Point, Carriacou. You can find us on IMA Grenada on Facebook, on IG, on LinkedIn. We also have our website, again, I feel like you all should be able to say it with me at this point. www.imagrenada.gd. Oh, thank you very much. So we'd just like to end off here tonight. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We wish you a safe journey home. And thank you once again. Go spread the word of IMA Grenada CBI program, all of its benefits, how important it is to us as Grenadians, not just for you, just for me, but all are we. And we just also like to let you know we have refreshments before you go to nourish you on the drive home. So you can find that at the back. Thank you.
Mobility is part of our journey through history. At IMA Grenada, we offer pathways of opportunity, creating innovation and enriching lives. Begin your journey at imagrenada.gd. Unlock the possibilities.